you to take your seats. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to this session. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Melody Anderson, and my reason for being here is twofold. I'm a partner investigator with ReMSTEP, and I'm also the program coordinator for the Master of Teaching primary program at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education, University of Melbourne. Now, just a little bit of an overview. This is a little bit of a, can't quite see this properly, sorry, because of the lighting. In our session today, we'll be having an overview of science and mathematics specialisations at the University of Melbourne. We'll be looking at science specialist strands at Deakin University. We'll be looking at primary science and mathematics, the elective that we ran this year, and our collaboration with the Gene Technology Access Centre, affectionately known as GTAC. We'll be video showcasing our pre-service teacher experience, and you'll be hearing from our pre-service teachers. We'll be introducing a collaborative forum with our pre-service teachers. They're the stars, they're the main attraction of this event. And that forum will last for about 20 minutes or so, and you'll be able to hear about the experience in the maths and science elective and to ask our pre-service teachers questions about their experience. And we will be seeking some feedback from you uploaded to a central repository, and I'll give you some more details about that shortly. Then we'll have time for some panel discussion and a little bit of Q&A. Thank you. All right, now, as you know, 7 innovations for ReMSTEP, and the 2 that we're focusing on in this session are innovation number 1, contemporary science and mathematics in integrated science and pre-service teacher units of study, and innovation 3, science specialisations from within primary pre-service programs. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we put in science and mathematics specialisations at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education without adding extra time, without an extra number of points of study, and still maintaining a generalist classroom qualification. So just to set the scene, set the context a little bit, the Master of Teaching primary program at MGSE is a 2-year graduate entry program. It's 200 points of study, and it gives our teacher candidates a qualification to teach across the primary program, in the primary classroom, across all areas of curriculum as a generalist classroom practitioner. It's 4 semesters at 50 points of study, and in full-time, and there is no early exit with graduate certificates. It's a full-time master's program. Now, with our national program standards for accreditation of primary programs at the graduate entry level, we are mandated to have the equivalent of 20 or 1/4 of 1 year of the program dedicated to mathematics and 1/8 of the program dedicated to science. And this is what's been in effect since 2008 in our Master of Teaching program. And this translates to 25 points of mathematics and 12.5 points of science in those 2 disciplines in the program. And this is what our 2016 program will look like for those who are undertaking the generalist programs. So all who are enrolling at that point, this is the program that they will undertake. And you can see that we have, looks orange there on my screen, or kind of an orange. We have professional practice subjects. We have our core subjects, our core psychology and sociology subjects, assessment subject. We have in green there a capstone experience, researching education practice, and the project that goes with it. We have an elective, and the rest is largely our discipline subjects. And you can see there, we've got Year 1 and Year 2 going horizontally, and you can see semesters 1, 2, 3 and 4, again horizontally. That we have a maths subject in semester 1, in semester 2 and in semester 4, and we have our science and technology education subject for our mainstream in semester 3. So at the beginning of, my first knowledge of ReMSTEP was when our Director of Learning and Teaching, Steve Dinham, who you heard speak this morning, explained to us the details of the project and asked me how we might incorporate 50 points of study for maths and for science to make it a science specialisation. So to be considered as a specialisation, can't say that word, try again. Specialisation, we need to have 50 points dedicated to the particular discipline. And this is how we did it for mathematics. So if you're looking along the first semester, Primary Maths Education 1. Now this is a subject that all do. And at that time, people have heard about the science or maths electives, specialisations, and they're considering whether they might take that option. So that subject is a very important one because it's a bit of a gatekeeper for us. In semester 2, in their professional practice subject, there's a maths task in their practicum that holds a certain point value. From 2015 onwards, we've been able to create new subjects for the science specialisations. So these subjects, Primary Mathematics 2, this is a different subject, the extension subject, so 2015 cohort and ongoing, will enrol or be streamed off into these different maths subjects. So Primary Maths Education 2 extension, and in semester 4, Primary Maths 3 extension subject, only done by the maths specialists. You'll see the capstone experience. We have researching education practice where they undertake a literature review and where they create a proposal, a project proposal. This must be in a maths or in an area of interest for maths educators for the focus for those two areas. They would then go on to take the maths capstone. So we give them priority enrolment into that maths capstone. We also say that it's compulsory that they take the maths elective. And of course, a compulsory elective is a little bit of an oxymoron there. However, they do in fact choose their elective back in semester 1 when they decide on this particular option for mathematics. Now, the total there is 66.25 credit points of study dedicated to mathematics. So in excess of the 50-point minimum for a specialisation. Now for science. Our science subject, our first science subject is in semester 3 at the moment in reaccreditation. Perhaps it might move to a different semester, that's yet to be seen. Our science educators are happy for the result from their primary maths 1 subject to be the proxy for entry into the science specialisation. So we have a 12.5 science subject there that it's only for the science specialists. It's a new subject. It will run for the first time next year when our current year 1s move to year 2. We also have the capstone experience, the lit review, the capstone proposal, and the capstone science capstone science project, another 25 points there. We have a science task, assessment task in the practicum subject in semester 3. We also have a designing personalised learning subject where it's a project, a school-based project, and it must have a science focus. And of course, they must take the science elective, and that will be a different elective than the one that you'll hear about today. These are the 2016 electives so far. The ones that we know definitely will be running will be the science in the integrated classroom and the leading maths in the primary schools. And that's certainly come from some feedback from our current students as well. Our elective that you'll hear about today is science and mathematics in the classroom. Now, how have we let people know about this? It's to be in the course handbook for 2016. This information has been introduced at open days, so people can be considering it at the time before they're even enrolling or putting an application in to enrol. We provide more information at orientation, so on that very first day we revise it, and we let our students settle in for a couple of weeks and become familiar with the new program and the university. If it's new to them, and we run an information centre session, a 1-hour information session. It's recorded. We have all of our people who teach into these subjects who present at that time, and then we explain to all of our candidates who come to that information session that this is by expression of interest. And so what are the selection criteria? We require them to have a previous undergraduate or postgraduate degree in the area of science or mathematics, or maybe both, that they have previous employment in the field or fields, And we ask them if there's any other type of justification or previous experience that they can draw on to strengthen their application. We also take a very close look, as I said earlier, at their result in the primary Maths 1 subject, and they need to have an honours to A average to gain access to the specialisations, to either specialisation. And we advise them at the end of, not quite, a little bit after the end of semester, once we've got all of that data in, that they're in that specialisation so that they can begin streaming off for the specialist maths subject in the second semester. Now, what is the background of our people who are electing into these specialisations? And remembering also that they do maintain that generalist classroom qualification as well. So this is from our 2015 cohort. So this is our Year 1 candidates. And this is where they've come from, and a pretty impressive array. I won't read through them all, but just broadly, we've got environmental, agriculture, health, pharmaceutical sciences, we've got the psychologies, biomedicine, physiotherapy, business, engineering, commerce, accounting, finance. And there are numbers for this year, 25 in science, 23 in maths. Last year the number was, or this current cohort, the number was higher in maths. So it just depends on which year. Previous employment. So what is their background, their employment background? So we have people who've been worked in laboratories, we have pharmacists, we have teachers, teachers' aides, university lecturers, business analysts, people coming from the corporate sector, broadly, engineers, IT, software people, cartographers, people who've worked in volunteer capacities as well, and in research. And I thought I would just give you an example of the type of application that we receive. This particular application comes from a young lady who is one of our first year candidates. I think I'll read through a little bit, but it's pretty impressive. I think you'll agree with me. And of course, at a day like this, I am going to put up a slide that is impressive, but may I say that this is not unique, that this is a fair representation of the calibre of candidate who is applying to be a maths or a science specialist in these programs. So this lady says, I have various roles throughout my career, and she has provided experience in science technology. So she's categorised them broadly. Under teaching experience, she's been a laboratory class demonstrator for second and third year students in the zoology department at UniMel. She's been acting head demonstrator for undergraduate biology. She's been a biology teacher at the University College. She's been a volunteer guide at the Marine Studies Centre in Queenscliff and Tooradin. She's completed a PhD in 1996 in zoology. She's been a research officer at the Department of Physiology at UniMel. She's supervised graduate and undergraduate students. She's been a co-researcher in a funded grant with the National Heart Foundation. Her area of interest is cardiac electrophysiology. I'm glad I actually did get that out without falling over that particular word. Now, in 2001, she's decided on a career change, and she's gone to a graduate diploma in business at Victoria University. And so for some 13 years there, she's worked as a business analyst, systems architect, and she's developed computer systems and worked in IT. I think you'll agree that that is a very, very strong background for a primary teacher. Well, unfortunately for us, in 2014, she's decided she wants to be a primary teacher. So I think her future students are very lucky indeed. It's a very strong foundation. Now, the Science and Mathematics elective, and this is the one that's just been completed, I think just a week ago. The subject focuses on supporting effective integration of the STEM subjects into primary classrooms. Always like to put that, I've borrowed that from one of our science educators, I do love it. And we've got drawing a person, which is Trevor, and then we've got drawing a scientist. And I think this scientist is having a little bit of a eureka moment by the looks of it there. Not sure what the discovery is. So in our Science and Mathematics elective, our students have worked collectively with a large team of academics, and this is with input from maths faculty and science faculty, as well as maths and science educators from the education faculty, with education officers who are here from the Specialist Science Centre, and ours this year has been GTAC, and they'll continue to work with us. From science, they've been in close contact and working together collaboratively with scientists through GTAC, with mathematicians and with school-based staff and teachers at our partnership schools. They have planned, they've prepared and they've rehearsed these model lessons for teaching of an adaptations unit. And our science specialist, Ken, he's not with us today unfortunately, but he's an expert on bees, so we've taught adaptations through the environmental changes and adaptations for bees. And we've embedded the mathematics and drawn upon the technology. You'll hear that directly from our students shortly. So we've implemented and rehearsed these in our professional learning teams out in schools over 6 weeks in our Master of Teaching partnership schools. And they've been modified and refined. And these units will be available on the ReMSTEP site broadly. And at this point, I would like to introduce you to Dr. John Cripps-Clark from Deakin University. John? And John's going to tell us about the specialisations at Deakin. Thanks, John.
Thanks very much. Better be here. Okay, so we have a similar system with our Master of Teaching at Deakin University. It's a similar program, it has a similar layout. However, ours is different. It's different because it's contingent, that this arises from the particular circumstances at Deakin University and the particular circumstances which we find ourselves at present. And one of the reasons is that we've always, with our primary science teaching, had them embedded within schools. So for instance, the Primary Science and Technology Education Unit, similar to the one at Melbourne, occurs within schools. So it's schools-based, it occurs entirely within schools. And it includes a strong component of small group teaching, which is collaborative, working in pairs with the students in the schools. It also draws on experience we've had with the Primary Science Specialists program that we've been running over the last few years, and draws on the materials that we've developed there. So there's kind of a very strong relationship there. And also from the Science Teachers Partnerships in Schools program that Linda Hobbs' research project, which has been running, which again develops on our school-based ideas and the school-based experience from a number of other universities. So this is contingent. It draws on a particular experience. The other thing that we have within Deakin that's slightly different is that we've packed all our compulsory compulsory units into the first 3 semesters. So we've actually got a full semester at the end we can play with. And that's given to students to do a number of things with. They can do a research component, they can do an internship, they can do sessions on leadership, or as we do it, we can do something with a primary science specialism. And so as such, we've got a great deal of freedom, and we continue what we do by putting them out into schools again. So they're out in schools working with the teachers who we have traditionally worked with in our primary science units, but able to do a lot more because they've already done my primary science and technology education unit. They've had experience in schools, they've had experience with small groups, so they now start to work with whole classes, they now start to work with the whole school. So they're out in schools for 2 days, they're back with us at university for a day where they get some of the more standard lectures and tutorials that we do. And because we've taken our cue from TMAG, where the federal government has said that they really want the specialists, the primary specialists, as they envisage them, to be classroom teachers, but to spread their expertise around the school as a whole. We want our students to actually work within a school, and we're very lucky having very strong relationships with schools, with the principals in schools, that we can actually sort of embed them in this very easily. And so clearly there's units that we do that further develop their primary science pedagogy. That's the first unit there. And start to think about this in a contemporary circumstance, the way that we're thinking about ReMSTEP. But also we want to think about how they integrate science across the curriculum and within particular elements of technology, sustainability, literacy, which are all very important. And they start to think about leadership within the school. So there is a unit thinking about how their specialism, how their particular knowledge of science that they develop over the years, because this is only really an introduction, will be shared amongst teachers. And so there's quite a strong emphasis on that. We're a bit earlier on the track than Melbourne, so we can't bring you the stories of the students as they're doing it. But again, I can emphasise how talented these students are, and how committed they are, how it's a really strong science background they tend to have, and how they just, when you put them out in a school with students, with other teachers, how they just run with it and develop so quickly and so rapidly as science specialists. Thank you.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier our Specialist Science Centre, the Gene Technology Access Centre, and I'm very pleased to be able to introduce the Director of the Centre, Jacinta Duncan.
I've got to find a new PowerPoint as well. Yes. Bear with me for 1 minute. Where am I?
I'm just going to stand here and look as though I can help, but actually I'm really bad at these things. As anyone in the room who knows me will attest. Oh, well done.
Thanks, Melody. Hi, my name's Jacinta Duncan. I'm the Director of the Gene Technology Access Centre, and I thought it might be a good thing to let people know who we are, basically. So let's start off by, I'm going to have lots of lovely pictures because lots of great things happen at our centre. At our centre, we're dedicated to coming up with educational programs for students and teachers in the life sciences. We're situated in Parkville on the grounds of University High School, so it's a great position because we're surrounded by research institutes and a research precinct there. So in this slide you can see the lovely Sir Gustav Nossel. Now he is treated like a rock star by students who come in. These are amazing people, and we want students to realise that scientists are the rock stars of our world, in my mind, because they're tackling the big issues that need to be tackled. And so we get to talk to these people all the time. We get teachers in to talk to these people. We get students in to talk to these people and think about the issues that are happening out there in the world. We're bringing this authentic, real-life science to teachers and students. And I love this quote he gave us. He calls us a bubbling cauldron of ideas, because it is students coming in, teachers coming in, and we're all mixing together and talking about education. We love it. So a little bit more about us. We have about 15,000 students participate in a program with us annually. We do that by having students come in and work with scientists. The lady in the blue lab coat is one of our scientist mentors. So students work in small groups, guided by a scientist. So that's a really big thing. We think that we demystify who a scientist is in the world today. Groovy young people. And we do a fair bit of information communication technology work as well, and a bit of maths. But we go on outreach trips. We take a van of scientists out to schools as well. And we also have video conferencing lessons with students in rural schools. And we have a lot of online resources that students and teachers can access as well. So we're Department of Education and Training funded, and they're really interested in equity of access. So when we worked on this ReMSTEP project, we were really keen that our part would be being involved with schools that are low socioeconomic schools or rural government ones. And we do a lot for teachers as well. We have about 1,500 teachers participate in a program at GTAC annually as well. And we also provide lots of resources and professional learning. So I'm going to talk quickly about who we are, why you might work with us if you're a ReMSTEP university. This is some of our staff standing here, and every single staff member at GTAC has a science education background, but also has experience in science. I think most of them have a PhD except me, basically. So what we do, we are dedicated all the time to working in this field of the life sciences. So we can read life science journals, talk to scientists all the time. We're always talking to education experts and reading the education journals. We're involved with VICA, so we know what's going on in the Australian curriculum. We're always looking at science in the news. What are the interesting things that we want to bring to students to get them to think about? And we're looking at the latest technologies. It's a really hugely, rapidly advancing area that we're in. It's exploding with technologies that are new and changing what we know about the world. So it's really hard for teachers to stay abreast of all of this, and so one of our roles is to try and keep teachers abreast of all of these things. So when we got approached about being involved in the ReMSTEP program by both University of Melbourne and Deakin University, we sort of thought about what we think works really well when it comes to professional learning. And what we think works really well is when we can bring teachers in and get them talking and hearing from experts, using the tools of these experts, and then collaboratively trying to come up with resources, bring this into the classroom. And they feel really empowered because they've used the technologies, they have listened to the experts, they have got a much better understanding of that particular content area. So this whole thing started with having meetings with academics, students from University of Melbourne and from Deakin. This proved really difficult because Deakin and University of Melbourne students have their placements at different times. So trying to get a meeting of many academics and students was really, really difficult. What we did though is we came up with some ideas and we decided, I think Melody already talked about this, you'll see my lovely beehive up here. We decided we needed to attack the area of adaptations because it's in the curriculum for Year 5 and 6, and we wanted to come up with an issue, a contemporary issue that students might be interested in studying and that is really important to our country right now, and believe it or not, that's bees. Bees provide us billions of free labour, billions of dollars worth of free labour by pollinating crops for us. We're in a really interesting area at the moment because most countries are experiencing colony collapse in their beehives. We actually fly bees to America when all of their almond trees are in flower. Have you ever thought of what it might be like to send bees to another country in a plane that are all going zzz all the time? Think about how hot that plane would get inside. How do you stop the bees from overheating? The economic value of bees is huge for us. But also, you might think you only know about these bees we see flying about, the European honeybees that were introduced so that we could get our fruit that we love, our stone fruits that are coming out right now, love it. We have how many species, Nicole or Fraser, of native bees? 1,700 species of native bees in Australia. We're actually a hotspot for bee research, which is a very interesting thing, isn't it? Because we've got semi-social bees, as well as social ones, as well as solitary bees. So it's actually a really interesting area. When we sort of said, we're going to do it around bees, everyone sort of went, oh, what are they thinking? But it's really interesting. It's got history, it's got economics, it's got mathematics, science. So it was a really great area to focus on. And we could think about creative thinking. We can think about design and technology. So we thought this was going to be a great unit that would hit on many things. So I'm going to click on one of Nicole's little bees here. So this project, Dr. Nicole Webster and Dr. Fraser Thorpe, who are both here today, have been developing resources with for people to use. So let's have a look at, first thing we did is we brought in a science expert. So I'm hoping these will work.
Okay, welcome to today's talk. I'm Ken Walker from Museum Victoria. I'm the Senior Curator of Entomology there. And my research for the last 35 years has been on bees, native Australian bees. So I'm here to talk about bees to you, and particularly about the physical and the behavioural adaptations that native Australian bees have made. So here we begin. I call it the pollination game because really it's what pollination is about. What is pollination? It's simply how flowers reproduce. So there's a female and a male part in the flower. Pollen from the male part is called the anther. has to physically move from one flower to the female part, called the stigma, which is the female part there. So there's going to be a physical transfer of pollen from the male to the female part. Now, why do we need pollination? Well, if we didn't have pollination, we wouldn't be able to eat lots and lots of our fruits. It'd be a very poor diet. Also, we wouldn't have hardly any vegetables. All of these vegetables and fruits are pollinated. So imagine life without pollination. Indeed, we believe that 1 in every 3 mouthfuls of food is a direct result of pollination. Okay, welcome.
I think it's on a loop.
I'm Ken Walker
What
from
a
New
nightmare.
Zealand Victoria. I'm the Senior Curator of Entomology.
Sorry, Ken. Ken was going to be with us, but he got inundated with some work that he had to do, which is really sad. Ken is an absolutely amazing character. He brings the world of bees alive, but with 35 years of research, he can do that. And he also had wonderful things to show us, wonderful videos like this one.
The bee collecting with the forelegs, and it goes foreleg, mid leg, mid leg, hind leg. Foreleg, mid leg, mid leg, hind leg. You see how it's patting it down?
Now,
so here we are. Watch.
I think every pre-service teacher here from University of Melbourne at the moment has practiced the foreleg, mid leg, hind leg thing. It was a little competition to see who could do it fastest. But what was really important here is he's an expert. We brought an expert in, the expert talked with the students. And then what the students did is they trialled some of the resources that we have. Let's have a look. I've got to make sure I hit one. We had a science animator make this particular resource. It goes for about a minute. And we just show it to students, and you should hear the comments of the students as they watch it. Freaks a few of them out. Very beautiful music, isn't it? And look at what happens in the background here. There's an apple tree in a glass house, and what does it not have? It doesn't have any apples. Everything's on loop. All right. It was quite amazing when we show that to students in primary schools, year 5 and 6 students. A lot of them have never realised that apples even come on trees, let alone what the life cycle of an apple tree is. So there's lots of really interesting learning that can happen around that. So what we're doing is we're actually, after working with the academics and the students, we came up with a unit that we wanted to develop. And we were hoping the students would be able to work on that and develop that with us. But the problem was that they were not given that as a subject. And so it was really difficult for them to find the time on top of their studies to actually do this extra work. It was a volunteer thing they were doing. So I was really excited when University of Melbourne decided to make this part of the course that they were doing, so that students could actually come and experience some of the resources that Fraser, Nicole and myself worked on and came up with at GTAC, and then modify them, evaluate them, modify them, take them out into schools, see what worked and change them and let us know what might need to be changed as well. So we're going to get these resources, this beautiful unit of work, up onto the ReMSTEP website. But the thing is, we want to make sure we've got excerpts from Ken so people can hear from the expert and get some of the background knowledge. And we also want to make sure that if we've got quite complex resources sometimes around mathematics or something like that, we want to make sure that the teachers get the background they need to run those and actually see what it looks like to run them. So there's, Fraser's going to hate me for this, but here's a little teaser of what that might look like.
I'm an education officer here at GTAC. In fact, I'm one of the designers for these resources around adaptation. And so I'm going to explain to you one of the aspects of these resources, which is about the bees and their waggle dances, and how this is a behavioural adaptation. And in fact, we're going to be looking at the mathematics behind this behavioural adaptation, this waggle dance. So just to give us a little reminder, okay? So we've got them bees in the hive over here, all these worker bees that are sitting in the hive, and then they're flying out and searching for some delicious pollen. so they can collect and bring it back to the hive and feed to the young. But once it's there, when it's brought back the pollen to the hive, the other worker bees are really interested in where they got it from. So now they have to communicate to the other worker bees where they found that pollen. And this is what's described as the waggle dance. So the waggle dance looks a little bit like this. If we take a camera and we put it inside a hive, and we take a little video, and this is kind of what it looks like. There's a hive of activity, lots of bees. There's a central bee right in the middle there that we're interested in, highlighted in yellow. And if we track this bee and look at the dance that it's performing, these are in fact instructions to find a flower with excellent pollen. Hi, my name is Fraser.
Sorry, Fraser.
I'm
Now that then unpacks into a learning experience for students where they start using protractors. So the waggle dance is all about the bees know the angle that they need to turn from the sun to fly off to the right direction to a flower, but they also waggle for a certain amount of time, and that timing can translate into distance. So students will then end up doing this translation. They have to do waggle dances for each other and translate it and find the right set of flowers in the classroom and that sort of thing. Really good fun. But we realised as we were doing this, we went, what if the students have never used protractors before? What if they've never even come across the concept of angles? So we called on AMSI, this wonderful group who have been developed called a Choose Maths group, who are going out and working in schools. And they've come across and worked with us, and they're developing some of these areas that we felt a bit weaker on in the mathematics area. So we've got that mathematics support now as well. So I'm hoping that sometime next year this unit will be up on websites, that teachers will be able to use it and enjoy it, and that you'll give us lots of feedback so we can be constantly modifying it as well. Am I allowed to answer questions now? Yeah, sure.
Oh, no, I just, while you've got it up there, I can see a few David Attenborough replacements in Australia.
Yeah.
I think because I'm into equity, actually.
Yeah.
In terms of getting this material out to as many people as possible. But I'm also interested and curious because I saw a show about a new bee box.
Ah, yeah, there's been lots of talk about the new bee box.
I just wondered the opportunity for people to feed back in, hey, what does the group think, and about that sort of topical stuff which is going on in society, because there are pros and cons. But that was the first thing I was thinking about, was what does this group think about that option?
Yeah, and what...
It's not a science program. It's been developed in Australia.
Yeah, it's a great thing, isn't it? Because you can think about contributing to the Australian economy through
It is, but it's very controversial because of the complexity. So the bee researchers maybe have a look at that.
yeah, and we're really hoping that we might have some sort of part on this website that's Ask an Expert. So you might be able to ask Ken. Maybe Ken won't have to answer all of them if we can answer some of them. But certainly Ken's amazing. He loves going out to schools. He loves talking to people about bees. But I think you're right. We have to make sure it's maintained, kept up to date. But we hope that people will feed in and provide us with resources that work well as well.
The team here, though, is the connections with people, though, because what I find the teacher in the classroom, what you said before, is that the teacher feels very threatened if they go into these things and they don't have the knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, you mentioned protractors, they are actually a confusing tool.
Yes.
So people like to think, okay, is there an expert in there who might show a diagram, that which you said AMSI will direct? This is where learning needs to go. Because otherwise we won't have teachers using the sites if they think that they're going to be in that sort of position. And I think that's the way to go with people presenting things. The way you've done there is terrific.
Oh, good. Yeah, we hope, and we'll have the maths experts come and present their part as well. And we're actually going to have we want students of Melbourne Uni or ourselves acting out what it looks like in the classroom as well when you actually do this thing. But yeah, I think that's really important that you do have the experts come and talk about what can be the issues and what makes it work really well. But also, we're just hoping as they get trialled, they'll get modified and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to finish with one thing. I'm nearly there. And that's just to say we're working across 5 different projects for ReMSTEP at the moment. So we've got a stem cells one for VCE biology that we're working on, a bionic eye one for year 9s and 10s. We've got our adaptations that you saw. We're working with University of Melbourne on a breadth subject where we've got science undergrads and postgrads actually going out into schools and experiencing education for the first time in their lives. And we've got the science specialism. So that was a little spirit for what we're doing. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jacinta. And this is perhaps where I prove my earlier claim that I'm not great with technology. I'm good when I'm at my desk to do. And I can't see where you link it.
Hang on.
Yep.
Link.
I know the bit about pressing the escape button.
That's the one.
I've got that nailed.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I'll pause it. And ready to go when you're ready.
Thank you. Okay, now just to hear it from our current maths and science specialists, just a couple of our students who are in the room, so I'm going to suitably embarrass them by putting their faces on the big screen right now. And what do I hit to make it play? Just down this. Okay. That?
Yep.
Thank you. Or not.
I think that sometimes people take science in the primary school as just something that you can do once a week or 2 hours a week. But I think what the specialisation has taught me is that science is something that needs to be integrated across the whole curriculum, and it's such a priority for the government, for the whole university, and it should be that for all schools around Victoria and Australia as a whole.
So the aspects of the specialisation that were most useful to me so far has been the network of colleagues and other teacher candidates that we've all formed throughout this year. We've made a little Facebook group to swap science info and lesson ideas, and we're sharing resources, and it's a really good collective mind to use to further our science knowledge.
I think the complexities of delivering science in the curriculum are many, especially for teachers who may not have that prior knowledge or content knowledge. The ability to work with specialists in the field, like GTAC, who have that prior content knowledge, rather than scientists directly who may not have that experience with delivering curriculum in a school setting, means that that content knowledge is really easily accessible for teachers. It's, I suppose, either programmed or written in a way that's easy to deliver in the classroom, and it makes that relationship and that rapport that you build with the students about the content knowledge and the lessons almost a lot more concrete, because you have some people who understand your problems in the classroom, and you have them taking care of almost the heavy lifting with those lessons.
My overall impressions of the elective have been fantastic. It's been so well supported, and we've had a lot of different experiences doing this. We've spent time with the scientists at GTAC and done activities with them that they've taught us, and then had the opportunity to work with our peers to teach other students what we've learnt as well. So spent time in classrooms.
So if teachers wanted to use the resources or wanted to undertake a STEM approach in teaching, I think they will need a collaborative approach to plan and teach. In that, especially in the planning stage, it's quite difficult to get your head around what adaptations is, what areas of the discipline you can integrate, especially if you're not an expert in a certain field. So for me, I was quite confident in science, but my math isn't very, very strong, as well as design and engineering. So it was really important for me to share my knowledge, but it was really important for me to listen to what other people had to say about how we can integrate all these different subjects. So I think a collaborative approach, so having that support and time to get together and plan is really important.
Well, working with the GTAC staff has been really great in getting their feedback on the teaching, and also having activities sort of given to us that we could use, because it's really hard in terms of time frames to come up with things sort of just off the top of your head. So getting activity ideas from them, and then feedback on how to put them into practice has been really good.
As someone who's been involved with science a lot, science is a real passion of mine. But since taking this course, and association with GTAC, my science content knowledge and my confidence in delivering that in conjunction with the STEM framework has grown. Prior to this, I hadn't had much experience with STEM, and science knowledge isn't enough to be able to deliver that. Having experience with the framework and working with these professionals like GTAC has greatly benefited that delivery.
It's something that needs to be highly exploratory. Students need to find things out for themselves. A lot of people go by the philosophy that why tell students something that they can find out for themselves. So being able to experience science activities, look at sequences and using STEM, and being able to be involved with GTAC has given me a lot of ideas and a lot of actually concrete examples of how I can actually implement a student-led science program going forward.
It's helped me see science education in a whole other way and also build up this amazing network of colleagues and educators and academics that I think I'll be really lucky and be able to utilise for the rest of my career.
Is it this? And Daniel, we need to get back to the mothership.
Oh, to get the presentation back, yeah, sorry.
I guess, yeah. Thank you. Okay. Now, just in terms of our, and I'm calling them teachers now because they are to graduate in 4 weeks, our previously pre-service teachers, and the role that they will have in schools, it will be largely context dependent. So I'm imagining that some of our science and mathematics specialists will be working in their own classrooms, that perhaps they will be the KLA leaders for their particular disciplines in schools, that they may be the people who provide professional learning for their key learning areas and maybe for their staff more broadly, that they may be the people who actually teach the science on a rotational basis within a particular series of grade levels, or they may have their own science room in a school and the classes are rotated through their science room. So it will be a variety. I would expect that they will accelerate in the ranks fairly quickly. Our early indications from principals is that they're gold, and our science and mathematics specialists are currently been undertaking interviews for employment, and principals and interview panels are extremely interested in the mathematics or the science specialisation aspect of their pre-service training. Now, I'm going to use Jacinta's phrase, our newly minted teachers are the rock stars of this session. I'm going to ask our teachers to stand up so that we can see who they are. We should be one person per table. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, let's give them a hand. They've worked really hard this year. Thank you. So in this session, we're going to ask you, if you're not seated at a table where one of our new teachers is located, if you could move to that table, and that they're going to tell you about their experience in the specialisation broadly and certainly in the elective and working with GTAC. Now, whilst they are presenting to you, feel free, it's an interactive session, feel free to ask some questions along the way. They'll have a support person with them, one of us will be on their table as well. But we're going to be using these guiding questions that are on the screen behind me, and we're going to be asking you to ask questions that answer these, of our candidates, that answer these questions for you, and we're going to collect your feedback via either your phone or iPad or various devices and present that at the end of the session. Now, keeping in mind that this is early days for these specialisations, we really do value your input and which areas you think are great, which areas you think might need some enhancement, or if you have any other ideas for us, we're certainly very happy to gather those. If you don't have a device that you can use, that Daniel here and Jenny is over here, if you see them, that they'll collect that data for you as well. Now, there is a URL which I'm hoping is on the next slide, is it?
It is.
Excellent.
But we'll go to that. We'll give them 20 minutes to do
Yes.
questions, and then we'll go to that.
And then through SurveyMonkey. So 20 minutes of chatting with our new teachers about their experience. And cycle it back with that would be a good idea. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to the stars of the session. Thank you, everyone. Sorry to interrupt the great and robust conversations at the tables, but could I ask the panel members to please come to, and they know who they are, to come to the stage to take a seat for our panel. Right, thanks everyone. We thought we'd have the opportunity for a brief panel presentation. I will ask the panel to introduce themselves and also provide a little bit of information about their role. And then we will ask you or invite you to ask questions of the panel. And we might just begin with John at the end.
Hi, you've already seen me. So I'm obviously at Deakin University. I'm the
recap.
primary strand coordinator for the Master of Teaching, and I also teach into the primary science and technology education units within the Master, and also I teach science communication to all of the science students within Deakin University.
Hi, I'm Duncan Simons from the Melbourne Graduate School of Education. I coordinated the STEM elective this year.
Thank you, Duncan. Fraser?
Hi, my name's Fraser. I'm an education officer at GTAC, and I was one of the designers for the Bee Waggle Dance and the adaptations unit.
Okay, my name's Nicole, and like Fraser, I'm an education officer at GTAC, and I've worked on the adaptations project and also on the elective with the students that we have here today.
And Jacinta, Director of GTAC, very lucky to work with these creative people.
Fabulous people, thank you. And can we invite questions from the floor, please? Yes, just here. Thanks, Daniel. And Daniel's going to do the opera role of running the microphone.
I just want to say thank you to Alison, who was very informative at our table, and we had a lovely discussion with her about her new journey of one of 10 career paths. But we wanted to suggest to her, we were saying about sustainability. She's had a wonderful couple of years at Melbourne University. She's made some wonderful contacts, but we are actually concerned at the table, we're concerned about the longevity of how that will sustain when she goes to work in her school or schools, and what the universities are doing in terms of, or GTAC, in terms of holding on to these wonderful people who are now entering our profession, because we do believe in 5 years' time they'll be probably disappeared through the cracks. So my question to you all is, have you thought about that when we have such wonderful graduates? How are we going to sustain this in our system so we can actually see probably a good change in what's going on? Thank you.
I could probably take it, or one part of it from the university perspective is that we will be following these graduates if they, with voluntary permission, of course, through various research projects, through our alumni. We will be trying to track their experience. We certainly will be planting the seed of thought prior to them leaving. I think I've already done a little bit of this in terms of an extra 50 points of study should they wish to come back and do a PhD or a doctorate. Since they handed their last assignment in yesterday, the thought of further study is not really on their mind just at this moment. But certainly we will be trying or endeavouring. We are encouraging them, of course, and we don't know, as I said, depending on the context that they enter, what will there be a variety of roles and ways that they will be utilised in the either mathematics or science area in their particular schools. But certainly I know that our dean will say that he likes to actually send these people out as a virus to infect others in their context, or for our MTeach graduates more broadly, that we want to set this virus. And so we would hope that they ignite that passion for other teachers in their room, in their schools. I know that we were talking at one of the tables here about coming up against people who have worked in schools for many years and have set ways of doing and teaching, and people's openness to change and new ways. And certainly we will be encouraging them to take the lead in their schools in that way. And we also welcome suggestions from you to that effect of how you think that this might, we might make sure that we don't lose them. We want to build that critical mass as well, so we welcome suggestions there. I might just ask if anyone from GTAC would like to respond further there.
What we noticed is that they were a very collaborative group, and they did collaborate beautifully on research and their designing resources. And I was actually blown away by how well they did that. And I'd very much like if they'd come back again. But I know once you're a teacher, it's really, really difficult to bring people back together again. But it might be possible that we do, and that we work together to develop something in a different field or a different area.
Professional development is the number one thing for teachers, sustainability, and I think that sort of idea you need to be looking at.
Yeah, definitely.
Might have to build in some little ReMSTEP reunion parties at a regular basis. Over here, just a question over here.
I think this is wonderful, what you're doing, and thank you to Gretel for being filling us in on this table. But I actually want to say, as a practicing teacher, I might be interested in this sort of thing. So what's being done for those people that are already out in the school? I mean, admittedly, I'm probably out of the box because I actually have taken a sabbatical and done my MIL at Melbourne Uni this year. But what about supporting people who already have a passion out there in maths and science in the class and in schools? How do we get them to, what's provided for them to become specialists? Other than, I've been doing this for 20 years, I think I'm special enough, but you know. So what's available there to improve, because teacher education isn't just about people coming out of university. Teacher education is lifelong learning, ongoing until you finally give up going into that classroom or going to that school or the last day of the day you retire. You are still learning and you probably continue. So teacher education is professional learning ongoing. So how can teachers in schools access this is brilliant, but how do teachers in school access it?
Well, sure, the ReMSTEP site would be a good point of access. Also, I will pass to you, John, as well, but I'm just thinking also in Master of Education suites of subjects, that if teachers are wanting to come back and gain a further qualification, that they can choose from a suite of subjects there. I might pass to John to speak on Deacon's behalf there.
Okay, I mean, this actually talks to the sustainability issue as well. And it's all very well having a virus, but it's the organism that they go into that really determines whether that's going to take off or not. It is the schools that we need to work on, and it is thinking of schools as, you know, learning environments that you need to think of. The state government has had the primary science specialists and maths specialists program running for a number of years, which has been a way for practicing teachers to have a 0.5 time to develop themselves as science specialists. And Coral Campbell is here and may like to comment on that. And part of the success of that has been teachers talking to each other, so providing venues where that continuing cross-fertilisation of ideas can occur. And to a certain extent, that's, we can do a very good job as universities, but it's dependent on the state government taking a commitment here, and the primary science specialists is a way of doing that. And that's going to have to be sustained within schools. So we can have the best prepared science specialists coming out from our universities. If they're going into an environment where they're not supported, or where there's not the general political and cultural support within the schools, then they will die. I mean, they will become great generalist teachers. They'll do other things because the school demand them, but unless we do that and think of the schools as a whole. So some of the programs that we're working on, like Skilling the Bay down in Geelong, like the science specialists, are ways of doing that. Coral, would you like to comment on what we've learned from science specialists?
One of the things that we've done, for those who don't know the Science Specialist Program, the department have funded teachers to learn science, but also to take that back to their schools and build the capacity of all other teachers in their schools. So it's not a program where the science specialist remains just teaching children, it's a capacity building so that every teacher in the school continues to teach science. As John said, the program's been going now for 2 years. The department are going to take up another program next year. But we've been looking at the sustainability side of things, and what we have found is that where teachers are given this support by leadership in their school, they're actually building the capacity of other teachers such that when their specialist role finishes, those schools are continuing with science. And so probably over the last 4 years, and it's a very cost-intensive program, but over the 4 years we now know that there are 100 schools around Victoria where science is taught regularly and with teachers who have a knowledge of actually what they're doing, teaching science.
Can I comment really quickly? Mine's a very grassroots one. We're also going to be, when we've finalised our program that Fraser and Nicole have been working on, we're going to be running professional learning in that program. So that's going to be the experts coming in, so people like Ken Walker from the museum, some mathematicians, talking to teachers, but then also trialling some of the aspects of the program as well.
I guess the resources themselves are also, focusing on giving the teachers a bit of background information too, that's supporting them through it. So it's encouraging their enthusiasm as well. And I guess that feeds into the sustainability of it, spreading throughout.
Just adding to the sustainability, I hope that all of our graduates from the Masters of Teaching feel really happy and comfortable to get in contact with us and to continually inform us about how they're going, what issues maybe they're having, so that, because I speak probably for all of the academics. I know there's a couple of others in here who I'm sure would be more than happy to sustain and continue that dialogue, that professional dialogue with each other.
Absolutely.
Could I just add to that as one of the pre-service teachers into that
Eldon, you're
teacher,
graduated.
now teacher,
Done.
that we're going into that eyes open on that sustainability issue, and we've already set up our own community of graduating teachers, because we know that we might be going to a school environment where we're the only science specialists. So we are, I think, aware of that and know its potential risk, and are doing our bit to try and support each other as well.
Excellent.
Yep.
And I know I was at a conference on the Gold Coast last week for Southern Cross University in a different area of the OLT that's linked, and we saw a presentation, a very exciting new way of connecting through IT called Teacher Connect, and I think that may be an excellent vehicle for it as well. Now, I think that brings us to the end of our session, and I know that it's not wise to stand between an end of a conference group and lunch, so I'm going to just wrap it up and firstly thank our graduates, our soon-to-be graduate teachers, for their input today. Thank you so much. and all of our speakers today. Thank you. And the panel. Thank you. And the organisers. Now, and just one note before we do leave the room is just that at 1 o'clock we have a guest MP who is presenting to us at the auditorium, so it is important to be back at the auditorium by 1 o'clock. So enjoy your lunch. Thank you for your attendance and thank you for your contribution.